So, good morning, everyone, distinguished guests, dear panelists, dear colleagues in the audience. We would like to welcome you in this panel 2 about the role of civil society organizations in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So it is my pleasure to moderate this multi-stakeholder panel exploring the critical role of civil society organizations in advancing the SDGs and in promoting sustainable, inclusive and democratic societies. Today, we will look at how civil society contributes to evidence-based policymaking, community empowerment and social inclusion, human rights protection and environmental sustainability, as well as stronger civic participation across sectors. Through grassroots advocacy, research and participatory approaches, civil society plays a key role in strengthening public dialogue, supporting accountable governance, and mobilizing communities to address major global challenges, from inequality and climate action to democratic resilience. So I'm very pleased to be joined today both online and in person by an excellent group of speakers. Mrs. Marta Garcia Haro, Senior Manager at the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, who will be joining us online. Susanna Fonseca from the organization Zero, Association for the Sustainability of the Earth System, who is also joining us online. Mrs. Natasha Ioannou, Environmental Campaigner and Project Manager at the Friends of the Earth. Dr. Theodoros Zachariadis, who is Professor and Interim Director at the Energy, Environment and Water Research Center at the Cyprus Institute. And of course, Ms. Anna Doran Grinchia, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, sorry, Program Manager at the Human Development Division at the Union of the Mediterranean. Anna will unfortunately have to leave the panel soon because she has other commitments. Thank you, Anna, for this. And with that, I would like to invite each of our panelists to share quickly their short opening remarks. Let's start with you, Natasha.
Good morning, everyone. I know we're taking a lot of your coffee break, so we're going to be very short. There is a lot of discussion to be done for civil society, for the Sustainable Development Goals, for climate justice, for energy security, for energy democracy. So all these terms are very broad. And we have the burden and the very important role in society to translate all this jargon into everyday life. Because we can see quality of life can be strengthened with different solutions that regard the climate, that regard energy management, waste management. But our role in this, and this is what we usually do, sometimes more effectively than others, is trying to push a better life for everyone. This is not an easy task to do this, to translate all data and all science into everyday life, and also to push for that data to go into policy and into advocacy, because we face a lot of closed doors. We have to push through doors. We have to break a lot of windows in order to bring our perspectives and our narratives into policy. And I will leave it for that for now.
Thank you very much. Professor Theodoros?
Well, you don't expect the professor to be brief, Thanks a lot for inviting me, and I hope we also bring a balance to the overall gender balance of the conference through this very, very happy imbalanced composition of the panel, and I'm very happy to be here. I would say that the civil society's contribution is crucial, and many of us tend to forget this. Because perhaps or many of us in the academic world, to the extent that we work on, on the science policy interface, we are more connected with decision makers. So we run the risk of being involved in top-down decisions, ignoring the need for consultation, neglecting perhaps the need for bottom-up approaches and listening to the voices of citizens. This may have to do with the way we structure our work or the way the basic funding mechanisms work. But we continuously find out that especially civil society organizations that are well established and have the knowledge and the skills to contribute with actionable knowledge can be important partners, not only for society, but also for the academic world.
Thank you very much. Anna? Yeah. There is always a first time.
Very, very well done. Thank you very much. And first of all, apologies because I will have to leave in more or less 20 minutes. But thank you very much for having me. I'm a little bit of an intruder in this event, in this session, because it's about civil society organization, and the Union for Mediterranean is not a civil society organization. We are seated on the other side of the table. We are an intergovernmental organization working through policy dialogue, even it's difficult, as was mentioning before, especially in this context. And we work based on our vision statement, which was adopted 3 months ago, on basically 3 pillars: people-to-people cooperation, economic development, and sustainable development, including climate crisis, energy transition, and so on. The part where we are working in this moment is that we have realized that in the last 30 years of the Barcelona process, unfortunately, the role of civil society got some backlash, as you already mentioned this morning. So what we are trying to do from our perspective, being the one seated in this policy platform with the representative of national government and policymakers, is to say, what we are doing in terms of shaping regional policies and national policies cannot be done, first of all, without a governance mechanism, including meaning engaging as co-creator of the civil society organization. And the second part is this engagement needs to bring on also monitoring and accountability. And I will stop here for the moment.
Thank you. Susanna, can you hear us?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Well, first I would like to start by thanking the invitation to be here. I'm here representing not only Zero, which is an organization from Portugal, an environmental organization, but because we are also members of SDS and Portugal. And it is a pleasure to be here. Well, my starting remarks would be that indeed civil society is fundamental to the implementation of SDGs. We can see it on the ground, but also considering what the previous panel was discussing, this shrinking of this civic space, what we see also in bringing here the experience from SDS and Portugal is that it is very important that we work more together with other, let's say, forces in society, other stakeholders, to also allow for a better, not only to have a better intervention as an organization, so, interacting with academia, even with some companies, with different stakeholders, other organizations in other areas, we are usually focused on the environmental perspective as being an environmental NGO. But it is fundamental if we want to contribute for the implementation of SDGs to actually, open also our mind and start to work together, build coalitions with other organizations that work on other areas. Also, so that when we intervene in our spectrum, in our area, we can have a more sustained perspective. We can include other aspects, and I believe in terms of being able to build more space for this intervention, it is also very important to bring these coalitions, this collective work. So not presenting ourselves or our statements, our positions as environmental positions, but bringing also saying this is environment, this will contribute for other areas and for the implementation of other SDGs. It's not easy, But I think it's one of the challenges we have also as an organization in civil society.
Great, thanks a lot. Marta, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the invitation as well. So here I am representing an academic NGO, and like the Union for the Mediterranean, well, we're not an intruder, but we're a bit particular. I am happy to see that we also have a local network, SDSM Portugal, because we have the broader perspective of the global network, but they will be able to share more localized work we do. As you may know, or for whoever doesn't know, SDSN is the world's largest network of academic institutions focused on the SDGs. We have more than 2,000 member institutions, and they are spread across every continent, really. We work with universities, research centers, and NGOs with a scientific component. And we're very, very global, really. We work through 60 national and regional networks that act as a local chapter for the SDSN, like SDSN Portugal. And each one of them is led by a university in their country. And we have a clear mandate from the UN Secretary General, actually, to support the 2030 agenda, mainly uniting the academic voice. And after more than a decade with this mission, we have built academic networks for the SDGs worldwide. First, when the SDGs were adopted, we helped with the definition. And then after that, implementing the goals at all levels, national, regional, even global. The three areas of work where a network like ours has been specifically successful have been three, and somehow they support each other. First, we provide education for sustainable development, making sure people understand and engage with the SDGs. So alongside this very well-known SDG Academy, which is a kind of online university for the SDGs, we will be launching a new master's degree on sustainable development this year. Second, we work on localizing and monitoring the SDGs, so policy work, as many of the colleagues here have also explained in their NGOs. So we help different sectors, regions, community adapt the goals to their own needs. And third, we work on leading and proposing transformative solutions so that the ideas are actually turned into actions. And I would say that as a network, we have put all our expertise and our efforts on advancing the SDGs, but of course, this cannot be achieved alone. So we work in sustained partnerships, and I hope to be able to talk more about the partnerships afterwards, because this is really the key to our success. And for NGOs like SDSN, it's fundamental to unite this best expertise on SDG education and sustainable solutions to convene all these different perspectives. To conclude, I would say that for this introductory remarks, that one of the great things about working with universities is that collaboration can keep going even when other levels of government are disrupted, like we've seen during the war in Ukraine or with the changes in the US administration. I think I'll stop here and we can talk more later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, dear Anna, we all know that gender equality and social inclusion are key aspects in the SDGs. So I would like to know your opinion about how the civil society organizations can strengthen those aspects within the broader SDG framework in the Euro-Mediterranean region.
Thank you very much. Yes, because I didn't mention, but I'm mainly working on gender equality, youth, and civil society organization at the UFM. What we are trying to do as UFM, as I was mentioning, is to be sure that when we are working with the line ministries in the 43 member countries, in this case, the one working on gender equality, what we are trying to do is to be sure that the role of civil society, meaning in this case, women-led organization mainly, but not only, local communities, initiative programs, think tank, academia, and so on. They are together with us from the beginning. And just to give a concrete example, how we are doing this. Our regional platform, policy platform on women empowerment is working based on a ministerial declaration, meaning a political commitment from the 43 member states. In this ministerial declaration of 2022, we have different priorities. One of them is dealing with the impact of climate crisis on women. What we have been doing, we have created community of practices with women-led organizations working on climate and environment. And recently, we have launched the first regional network on the Nexus Climate, Women, Peace and Security. Meaning that in the region where we are working, you cannot work on gender without working on conflict, meaning not only armed conflict, but crisis and solution, and particularly the climate one. So how we are going to implement this approach of co-creation, of engagement, of monitoring, accountability that I was mentioning before. Basically, we have put together a network of 30 organizations which involve UN organization, academia, think tank, civil society, and ministries. All of them are part of the same network. What we are doing is to provide them capacity building and training to be sure that the ministries and civil society working on climate, they can include a gender perspective in their national policies. And the one working on women, peace and security, they are going to include the climate perspective in their national action plans. And this we are going to do together from the beginning. We have done a mapping of what is happening in the field. The civil society were with us in shaping the network, in shaping the knowledge hub that we are going to launch this year in November. And what we want to do is to make this sustainable in terms of also a national and local level. Because whatever we are talking about policy agenda, when we want to have civil society engaged, we need to bridge the gap between the policy and the implementation. Because when you talk about gender equality, in the Euro-Mediterranean region, the legal framework is there. No one, women and men have same right on the legal level. What is missing is the implementation, it's the practice, it's the policies, the strategy, the funds. So what we want to do is to bridge this gap by putting together who is working on policy shaping and who has to implement this policy shaping, this policy on gender equality. This means that we have to localize the agenda. And to localize the agenda, you need to work with the local communities. I think during the first panel this morning, this was also mentioned. This means that when we are thinking about a project in Egypt, just to give an example, we need to understand that one thing is the Cairo environment, and then another thing is the Upper Egypt at Cairo. It's totally different context, so there is no one solution fits all. And this is where we need the input of the civil society, and we need to legitimize them. You were mentioning about base evidence and data, how to push. It's the same when you talk about gender, when you talk about climate. We need to understand the civil society as the one who can bring data to have policy-driven action. But this means that you need to trust them. So you need to build trust. And I will stop here. And I'm really sorry if I have to leave, but I would be happy to continue the discussion after. In 1 hour, I will be back. Sure. I'm really sorry for this.
No worries. No worries. Thank you very much. Okay. So I would like to address the first question to Marta. From your experience at the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, how can CSOs better translate global SDG frameworks into concrete and local level impact?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your questions. We have many successful examples on how to translate the SDG framework into concrete impact. Our contributions include shaping public policy, providing high-level education, sectoral guidance, developing innovative solutions like I was saying in the beginning. So let me share a few examples to illustrate that. First, on the policy side, we and our SDSN networks have been very successful in convening different stakeholders and working with governments, sitting on the same table, academia, policymakers, businesses, civil society, around the SDG debates. And as a result of this work, we have played a very important role in the preparation of national and local SDG strategies, which have been key for SDG implementation. Other networks have contributed to the voluntary national reviews. And in Spain, for example, our national network is represented in the National Council for Sustainable Development, which is an advisory board that brings together members from across all sectors of our society. And in Switzerland, for instance, our network is the coordinator of an interparliamentary group working on the SDGs. So therefore, we see tangible results of our work at the policy level. And like the previous speaker was saying, we do gather the data and put them into policy. Second, I would say another outstanding contribution of our academic members, who are, like I said, mainly universities, is their expertise in evidence-based knowledge. And so in this regard, experts from all our networks collaborate in producing our flagship report, the Sustainable Development Report, which measures SDG performance in every country. I guess many of you know it. But annually, this report is an analysis prepared by our experts in the networks who provide inputs for this work. And then the report, since it covers most of the countries in the world, is used by many governments and NGOs to discuss and track SDG progress. So this is another example of direct and concrete impact of our work. And third, and to conclude, all our members are in academia. So therefore, education is a key action space for us. Here I must mention the SDG Academy. This is our flagship initiative for online learning. And we offer free online courses on sustainable development on any topic you can think of. And they're taught by our experts and also practitioners from around the world. And many of them come directly from our member universities, who contribute with time and knowledge. And we partner with the UN agencies and also with private organizations to produce really outstanding educational tools, which are relevant, which are accessible, and are grounded in academic and real-world expertise. So with these three examples, I would add an interesting figure, which is that more than 1 people have already enrolled in these courses. So with these three examples, I think I can show how the work of this NGO really goes somewhere into concrete action. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. Following Marta's great examples of how academia and policymakers and researchers and civil society organizations work together to promote and produce real impact on the SDGs development, I would like to give the floor to Susanna to tell us how can multi-stakeholder collaboration between CSOs and academia and policymakers be strengthened to accelerate progress on the SDGs?
Yes, well, indeed, I would say that from our experience, there are essentially 2 ways for these different organizations, these different perspectives to meet. One is when it is created, like as Marta was saying, we also have in Portugal a Sustainable Development Council that was kind of a formal, I don't know how to call it, institution maybe, to advise the government. And then you can have initiatives like SDSN or other coalitions where you can actually put all these different knowledge in contact. For example, in our experience here in Portugal, for the Sustainable Development Council has not been so successful because depending on the political perspective, sometimes the advices they give are not taken, or time is not given. One of the difficulties that we find, I used to be a member of this council representing NGOs a few years back, and what we felt was that in many cases when there was a huge effort, because in these councils, it's not just civil society or academia, it's like the different economic sectors, trade unions, consumers, you have so many different perspectives. And then there was this big effort to reach to an opinion, which usually takes time. If you want to, it was a consensus-based approach. So it takes time to get to a final document. And sometimes at the political level, this time doesn't exist. It's like they send a document to be checked, and they expect to have a statement, a position by this huge group of stakeholders in a very short time. This is one of the big difficulties. But it is interesting to visit and read these documents and see how we can actually find these pathways to reach to well, in that case, a consensus, which sometimes ended up having a position that was not so strong as we as environmental NGOs would like, but to find a middle ground. So I think this is one of the approaches we can have, and in Portugal, and I imagine in many different countries, you have different councils like this. But then, of course, you have all these initiatives of civil society, and in this case, I think it's a great opportunity to, as other panelists were saying, combine data with intervention, with different perspectives, different interests that have to be put on the same box to reach an agreement. And I think when we go as a group to a meeting, for example, with a governmental representative, and say, so this is what we are doing, this is what we think that should be done. I think in time, it builds this space where, as Marta was saying, actually, the example in Spain of having like this connection, even with the parliament in a committee on SDGs. So this is the kind of connection I think we should all look forward, because this is when it's kind of an institutionalization, but from the bottom up. We bring the work, we show what we are doing, we show the value of our positions, this coalition positions, and in time, hopefully, we can. It can be easier for governments, for parliamentarians to understand the importance of including this this perspective. And so, in going from a participation perspective, that's usually what we have now. Like there's something to be decided, and then we ask and we give the opportunity, like the government gives the opportunity for different stakeholders to give an opinion, to a co-decision perspective, where we are kind of involved from the beginning in the decisions, so that they are more aligned also with the SDGs. So this is very important. Of course, in terms of the collaboration, what we also feel in many cases, one of the problems and something that would be important to try to work to solve is the funding issue. So we always see, even at SDSN, like the resources are scarce, and there's a lot of ideas, a lot of things that can be done, and there's this perspective, and you feel it also in the environmental movement, and I'm sure other stakeholders feel it too, particularly at this time when we see that also in terms of funding, the sources are being reduced, and this is sometimes a difficulty. So if we can find ways to support these kind of coalitions, it can allow for a bigger, faster development of these interconnections between this civil society, academia, policymakers, other stakeholders that need to be involved in this discussion. And this is something we still have to build. I think it's in some cases, at least here in Portugal, we feel that in some cases it's starting to happen, this recognition, but it's something that it takes time. but it is fundamental. And as I said, as a last to finalize my intervention now, it really strengthens each position. You know, if we integrate more, if we try to balance the different perspectives with these different data, different interests that need to be taken into account when you are implementing locally SDGs.
Thank you very much, Susanna. That was very thoughtful. And now moving to Professor Theodoros. How can civil society contribute to shaping more sustainable and evidence-informed energy and environmental policies?
Okay, you specialized this because yes, that's
due to your
the
background.
field.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm working on. I think we share some commonalities and some differences with the priorities of civil society organizations, but you're asking about the overall contribution of civil society, so I will still civil society organizations, so I will stay at that. I think what has already been mentioned is important. The civil society organizations serving as watchdogs about the implementation of policies. This is something which certainly we cannot really do because we can contribute to the planning phase, which reminds me that I still have a title of manager of SDSN Europe, although I don't deserve it, because from 2020 to 2022 we have contributed to the Sustainable Development Report of Europe on assessing the SDG impact of the national recovery plans of Europe. But all this is related to plans. Certainly, we don't have the competence and we are not asked to monitor the implementation. And because plans are nice, but they have to be implemented, and this is something where governments, national or local or regional, may have great difficulties, civil society organizations have a real important role to play in serving as watchdogs, as I said. The other aspect that they can bring is to put more emphasis on issues that governments or local authorities may ignore, that have to do with gender equality, with social equity, with adverse impacts of some policies. There may be energy and environmental policies that promote, for example, climate objectives and go against biodiversity. This is something that a civil society organization, not necessarily an environmental NGO, but perhaps a broader CSO, can contribute to into alerting the public and thereby the decision makers about some adverse impacts, because in all policies and in all decisions there are trade-offs. And governments are pushed sometimes by some important priorities, or of course by some interests, to pay attention to some of the aspects. So CSOs can play a very substantial role in addressing the possibly adverse impacts and the social equity and the gender dimensions, which may very easily be neglected, as I see.
Thank you very much. And moving to Natasha, from your work in environmental advocacy, how can grassroots civil society interventions drive more effective climate action at the local level?
Thank you, Haram, for the question. Just before I go into answering it, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, huh? How much more the civil society can do, what is more, this is what they could do. I mean, maybe we should start focusing a little bit on putting pressure to the decision makers and to where the top-down positions is taking up. Because the responsibility and the pressure that we put on ourselves is massive. And we need to understand that. And we need to give ourselves a little bit of pat in the back when we don't manage to get whatever we want to do. We are doing fine. We are doing fine. With the fight back that we get, we are good. And in terms of environmental advocacy, A lot has been covered by Dr. Theodoros about us being watchdogs, which is a huge political pressure, and it's a huge political pushback as well. But in this sense, what is environmental advocacy and what we can do in more of the climate action is such a broad term, because we work on environmental justice. So this is a huge term that covers all SDGs, and it's very intersectional. So there is no climate action without the feminist approach, the ecofeminism. There is no climate action without the poverty, without energy poverty, without mobility poverty, without access to urban infrastructure, without access to safe and accessible green spaces. There is all these things that cover all SDGs under this term, and this is what we do. And in terms of advocacy, what we have as an issue is access to decision-making to all levels, from local communities to local municipalities, to decisions being made about a park in the neighborhood, to decisions being made by the Electricity Energy Authority to cut down curtailments in photovoltaic panels of houses, to transparency. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors, to participation, and to put our points across, because civil society, whether an environmental NGO or other NGO, are the first to know where the problems are, and they are first to know how to identify these issues. So since we are the carriers of these issues, we need space, and we need institutionalized space. So whatever decision making is taking place, I mean, there should not be any law being passed, any policy that does not involve the contribution of civil society. And this is how you make a more effective any action, including climate action, at all levels. Because you cannot have awareness of the public. We do that. Public empowerment and community empowerment and education, we do that. We are at the advocacies, we are at the parliamentary committees, we are at the decision makings, and we do that. But they get back from us an institutional position that we need to have. And I would stop it here.
No, that's a great pass. Thank you very much. Since I would like to ask Susanna to elaborate a little bit more on what are the key barriers preventing civil society from fully engaging in SDG implementation, and how can this be addressed? This is nicely stated by Natasha, need for institutionalized space, there is lack of access, a lack of transparency. So what else can you point out, Susanna?
Yes, well, I would say every time we have this, as we are now in a moment where there's so much disruption internationally, I would say what we feel as one of the challenges is also like the politicians get not only they give a step back in terms of sometimes not being so open because there's a lot of things going on, but also there's sometimes urgent decisions that need to be taken, and in those situations, it's one of the difficulties that the ability, the opportunity to participate is even smaller, I would say. Another difficulty I already mentioned before, it's the funding. I mean, the resources. In order to be involved in a structured, constructive way through time. You need resources, and in many cases civil society does not have these resources, and so it relies a lot, and that's also there's a good aspect in relying on voluntary work. It's good to involve people, it's good that people are volunteers, but there's a limit. So if you want to do a more structured work, a more implementation of SDGs, not something that happens in 1 month or 2 months or even a year, so it's something that needs a more structured work, and in this case funding is usually funding, and resources is usually one of the challenges we also face. And following some that was mentioned by the panelists, we also feel that sometimes, of course, we are the watchdogs, like the NGOs are usually seen as the watchdogs, but it would be important for us to have other voices also being in the public space, saying the things that, I mean, we are having this more and more scientists, for example, coming out and discussing these issues, saying that certain decisions are not right and that we need to go, or maybe not decisions are not right, but that we need to go in certain ways. And this is very, of course, we have international scientific panels on climate change, and this is very important, so that it's not just the NGOs. I think it's in many cases the environment or in other areas, we sometimes feel a little bit alone in the sense that there aren't enough voices not behind us, sorry, by our side, saying this, and this is really, really important. Also, in many cases, what we also find is that, so when we talk about SDGs, there's a complexity around it, not only in the number, so much of the 17, but like all the targets behind it, but also on how to integrate these different themes, these different areas that are being, because the idea of sustainable development is actually that everything is intertwined, and as Natasha was saying, so we work here, but we need to take into consideration this, and this. And in many cases, even for example, for smaller organizations, it's not always easy to keep to be able to enter this discussion, to be part of the debate. And that is also another issue that sometimes happens, that like, there's different spaces. If you are different spaces of participation, different opportunities to participate, if you are a bigger organization, even from civil society, but a bigger organization, or if you are like a grassroots organization, you know, that in many cases, they even face more challenges in reaching out, for example, for politicians, even at the local level, you know. And of course, at the local level, we always have this difficulty also of people knowing each other. And sometimes it makes it even harder to be able to participate if there's some kind of connection, some kind of, it's sometimes harder to do it at the local level. I'll say in terms of and definitely just stressing the consultation process, being consulted at the end of the process. So again, participation as like a something that has to be done and not something that is part of a co-decision. Okay. I think this is fundamental, and we feel it very, very often in our action that we're not involved. And one other experience we have is that we don't all have the same information. For example, in many cases, industry or economic sectors get the information, for example, there's a law being prepared and they get a draft, but we don't. And we are there representing like the common good. We don't have a specific interest in the legislation, except that the good of, you know, mankind, good of the world. And this is also something, there's a culture, there's this, sometimes when you don't have formal integration, participation in this co-decision process, what you usually have is like, some people get access because they have the contacts, but then others don't. And this is really something that we see a lot happening here in Portugal. I imagine in other countries it also happens, because we also have friendships with some economic sectors, and they actually tell us, oh, we received this. Have you received it? We would like to, sometimes they want to discuss with us the proposal to see, and we get like, oh, but we don't have the proposal. You know, so, and this happens a lot. So there's a lot of, still a lot to be conquered in this
Thank
area.
you, Susanna. It's true, information is power nowadays, so yes. So I would move to Marta, and I will ask her now, what mechanisms or partnerships have proven most effective in ensuring that civil society contributes to evidence-based policymaking at national and international levels?
Yes, thank you, Chara. Like Susanna was saying, when there are so many crises going on, ensuring the resources to do our work is essential. So linking to this, I would say that EU-funded projects have proved to be a really good platform for this. And SDSN is currently part of several European projects. We have delved into this world quite recently, but under the Horizon Europe and Erasmus Plus frameworks, we have been quite successful in mobilizing our networks. And for example, one of the projects, which is quite well known, is Arsinoe project, which unites different stakeholders, local authorities, citizens, researchers, to work together on a specific challenges in several regions in Europe. We test solutions in real world case studies. And then, for instance, on water management in Andalusia and in Greece, whatever, we test the solutions. And then afterwards, the project provides recommendations that can be adopted by the local government. So this is just one example, but in the past 5 years, this has worked very well for us. I would mention another mechanisms which are worth saying and that are both participatory processes. One is the Citizens' Assembly, which some of our networks have coordinated. So in Switzerland, we coordinated the Food Assembly for the future of food in Switzerland. And in Spain, we coordinated the Climate Assembly. So this is another great mechanism to engage with policy. And at the university level, which is basically also one of our main pillars of work, we can also mention the living labs. You know that in these labs, for instance, at the university, the campus infrastructure is acting as a test place for sustainable solutions for energy, waste, transportation, whatever. And we just started an EU-funded project called UNICO, University Decarbonization on Campus. And we will use this methodology to reach net zero emissions on the university campus in Europe. And finally, another mechanism which has been extensively discussed is to partner directly with governments. And this has proved for us very effective. We provide advice to several national governments on the implementation of the SDGs, currently to Benin and Uzbekistan, for example. And thanks to the rigorous work we've done with SDG monitoring and the mentioned Sustainable Development Report, governments come to us to ask for advice, and we produce regional and national versions of these reports. We analyze their SDG performance, and then with the government, we take their results and we analyze in which SDGs and targets they are behind or they need improvements. And then with our networks, we hold national debates around the SDGs, and in this way, we ensure that our work really gets to the target audience. And let me share a great example. When we held one of these debates, when we launched the Sustainable Development Report for Spanish cities, I remember that on the stage we had the mayor of Madrid and the mayor of a Basque city who had ranked top first in sustainability. And the mayor of Madrid turned to the mayor of Vitoria and said, you and I, after this debate, we need to sit down and you have to tell me how you got so far. So for me, that was the proof that the work was good. And to end, I could briefly mention also the partnerships with the private sector in times when the ADO is shrinking and we're all struggling with funding. Private foundations and companies have been really key to secure our projects, and it's been really beneficial for both of us. These foundations and companies gain access to our expertise, and thanks to them, we get our work done. But we also get to learn how they collaborate and how they work. So it's kind of a mutual benefit. And with this,
Thank
I'll
you very
conclude.
much, Marta. We are running out of time, unfortunately. So quickly, like to ask Professor Theodoros, in which ways can collaboration between research institutions and civil society strengthen the impact of sustainability initiatives?
Yeah, as I said before, we share some commonalities and some differences. As Susanna mentioned, CSOs are supposed to be working for the common good, and academic institutions are also supposed to be working for the common good. Another commonality that we have, I think, is that we have the possibility, or we have the tendency to think over the longer term, both kinds of organizations, scientific and civil society organizations, which means that we can perhaps highlight issues that are not of immediate interest or of immediate priority to policymakers, but which are important for sustainability. Having said that, of course, I have to admit that not all academic institutions and not all scientists think of the common good and have in mind the long term. They also can have their short-term and their short-term interest in mind. So let's not paint an idealistic picture, at least of the scientific world, because I think that civil society organizations have a more, are more tending towards the common good without particular personal short-term preferences. But I think that if the scientific world, to the extent that some scientists want to work on this, because some others have completely different priorities, which is okay, perhaps, if the scientific world works more closely, as Marta has highlighted, with civil society organizations, this can help because it can increase perhaps the credibility of the civil society organizations. It can perhaps contribute to giving them access to broader European or international networks of scientific organizations, but also of other organizations, umbrella organizations of civil societies. And all this can bring benefit. There are limits to this, again, because I can hardly think of scientific work that can actually contribute very much to the implementation. Perhaps I'm wrong, but we are more towards studies and towards plans, and the implementation has to do with the doing actual field work, which some scientists do, but most don't. So I don't think we can, we can bring 100% benefit to CSOs, but certainly the partnering can be crucial. At the same time, I have to say that because of our short-term interests sometimes, and because of the scientific world's funding needs, we may also have the tendency to go towards funders which are stronger and who are not providing direct support to CSOs. So that's where our own responsibility and our own values come into play, not necessarily to look into the strongest funders, but to really partner with organizations that may seem to be weaker in terms of financing mechanisms, but which are important for the welfare of societies.
Thank you very much. And coming to the end of the discussion, I would like to discuss, Natasha, with you something that to me is like the most important, the final goal of all these that we are doing locally and nationally and internationally, if I may say, which is the change in the behaviors, the change in the mindsets of the people from the younger generations to the elder generations. And moving to, from the individual to the collective. So my question would be, what role can community mobilization and public awareness play in influencing environmental policy and behavioral change, of course?
Thank you, Chara, for the question. For starters, we need to separate public awareness with mobilization. Public awareness is the actions that we do, such as living labs, such as citizens' assembly that were mentioned before, education processes that provide the solutions to people, that they show stuff and things are feasible. They are the aha moments. Of course, solar panels work. Of course, we can have public transport. Of course, we can have zero waste festivals. All these things, they work on into public awareness, like showing people and showcasing people that these work. Behavioral change can happen from this, so people change a little bit their habits, but we cannot push everything into the individual level. And we cannot push all the solutions to come from personal responsibilities, especially when we don't have structures, especially when we don't have infrastructure, and especially when we have systems that are not allowing people to do so and change their behaviors easily, cost-effective, and without any worries in mind. So challenging the system is where mobilizing comes. And mobilization, it transforms this awareness into organized action, into actions that have structure, have continuity, they have influence, there might be organizing communities, there might be advocacy, challenging weak decisions from the government as watchdogs, and call better enforcement. And mobilizing is crucial because it gives us democratic legitimacy. And this is the main thing that we should have as NGOs and push as NGOs. I mean, be there, be visible, be present, and send a very strong message that we will not go away because this is our work. And I will leave it here.
Thank you very much. So I would like to open the discussion to the audience. Yes, please, we can.
Hello, everyone. Sirine Srayer, Anna Lindh Foundation. Thank you for the insightful discussion. And indeed, civil society plays a crucial role in advancing and achieving SDGs. Well, my question is addressed to Natasha. Thank you for highlighting the importance of putting pressures on decision makers, especially in advancing policy change. But in my context, coming from a restrictive environment, that kind of pressure can sometimes trigger backlash or further limitation on civic space. And so from your point of view or from your experience, how can civil society strike in the right balance between being influential and protecting its own space and practice? Thank you.
We can take one more. Yes.
Thank you, Eleni Karaoli. You all recognize the need for cooperation and networking, and our friends from academia recognize the role of civil society organizations into data, best practices, near the people. So NGOs find closed door when it comes to technocrats and bureaucrats in government. And that's the role, I believe, of the academia, because they are recognized by the technocrats and bureaucrats in governments and institutions, to have them next to them, seated by them, and put them in the same table. That's the one point. And also, we don't want to do it for free anymore. So put legitimate NGOs next to you in the projects for some money. Not all the money, but NGOs to be able to do what Natasha said, because we know what Friends of the Earth are doing in Cyprus and abroad. We also need some money. So yes, we need your support to go further, but please support also us. Thank you.
Do we have more questions? Okay, one.
So I am Mary Pyrgos. I am president of the Foundation Fimonoi. I coordinate the Cyprus Gender Budgeting Platform, and I am in the core group of a European Gender Budgeting Network. So I listened to all these very interesting suggestions and contributions, and I would like to say that I would like to say a few things about what is how we encounter these issues that you are talking about. So first of all, in order to reach the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030, we need gender equality. In order to reach gender equality, we need funds. We cannot reach equality without funding. Then, for the last 3 years and in Cyprus, we have been trying to promote gender budgeting in order to get more money for to change the budget so that we have a better budget and a more just budget, so that the resources are distributed in a more just way. And we always find, they always tell us that there is no money. However, by tracing how money is spent, we found out that a lot of money is spent, is misspent, and through corruption and through bad management. So it is very important that we push for gender budgeting, and we had a plan, and we have achieved quite a few things. And now we have legislation for sustainable development, and then, but this is not enough. So what we try to do, in order to persuade and push even more the government, we are trying to do pilot projects. And I think that
we are running out of time.
Yes,
Thank you very much. We
so
can
I think
conclude.
that it is very important. We need cooperation, we need information, we need a better management of government money. So
Thank
this
you
is
very
what-
much. Natasha, would
Yeah.
you like to start?
Yeah, of course. I think we only have one question, to be honest. So on a broader level, to answer to your question, on a broader level, on a state level, we have the whistleblowers law that is also enforced in EU in a very weakly way. So we are trying to push a lot for that. Because, I mean, in terms of issues, especially in the Southern Europe and of course Cyprus, I mean, you can see corruption in all environmental issues that is putting its claws in. So being a team or being an organization that's going to put this forward, put it into court, put it into justice or whatever, you need a law that's going to protect you. Usually we do it in collaboration with other organizations, so there is a little bit of power in numbers, and we get each other's back and a little bit of support. Social media help, name and shame, and how you protect environmental defenders, as we call them in this phase, and the access to justice. On the activist level and on the personal level, some things are scary. So you choose your battles, and you decide whether you're going to put anything forward. But the main thing is to push for democracy, for freedom. If you don't push for democracy or freedom, then everything is trickling down. And I will leave it at that, I think.
Thank you all very much. Let's clap all together our excellent group of speakers. Thank you very much.